Hello everyone, Namaste. My name is Arsh, and in this video I will be talking about taxation and tax incidents. So this video is related to is a carry forward version of my previous video on Musgrave's three branches of government. So Musgrave's three branches of government are stabilization branch, allocation branch, and distribution branch. And one thing which combines all these or binds all these three branches is taxes. So stabilization branch and allocation branch is dependent upon the revenues earned through taxation, and distribution branch uses tax as a tool to perform its function of distribution of resources from one section of society to another section of society. So if you haven't watched my video on Musgrave's three branches of government, I would recommend you to watch it so that you could have a better understanding of from where the topic of taxation is coming from, right? So broadly speaking, there are three types of taxes, which is taxes on income, taxes on wealth, and taxes on consumption. And you could see the type of taxes which lies under all the branches of three types of taxes. There is another distinction of taxes, which is direct tax and indirect tax, right? And it's also a valid distinction of type of taxes. So the reason why I am talking about taxation and tax incidence in this video is because taxes play a very crucial role in economy of any country. So for example, take Czech Republic and India. So in Czech Republic, the share of tax revenue to as a percentage of GDP is 35% as compared to India, which in which the share of tax revenue to GDP is only 12%. So the question which came into my mind is that how does this country manages to collect so much taxes, right? So the answer to my question uh, lies in the tax structure of that country, like how that tax structure of the country is implemented, right? And broadly speaking, the answer to this question lies in two frames, right? So firstly, the taxation system or the tax structure in the country should be efficient and it should be equitable, right? So the tax system should be efficient and it should also create equitable society in the country, right? So when I talk about efficiency and flexibility of taxation system, the question which the administration or which I should answer is how to tax, right? If the administration wants to create a tax system which is more efficient and flexible, then the administrator should ask himself or herself that how should I tax? And if the purpose of tax administration is to create the system more equitable and transparent, then the question should be whom to tax. And in this video, we'll be focusing only on one frame of taxation system, which is efficiency and flexibility. So we'll be trying to answer how should we tax, right? So before going on understanding the efficiency and flexibility of tax system, we should understand that what is an efficient tax system or what are the characteristics of efficient tax system. So there are two main characteristics of an efficient tax system. Firstly, the efficient tax system has a very low cost of existence, right? So I remember in one of the functions in one of the ceremonies in Maharashtra, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Uddhav Thackeray, uh, came and he was telling that a finance minister is successful when the people or the citizens doesn't know that the finance minister is taking money out of them, right? So a taxation system should be in such a way that people should not even realize that they are paying taxes, right? It should have a very low cost of existence or a painless existence, I should say. right, from the perspective of taxpayer citizen. And second main characteristic of efficient tax system is that it should not take us far away from the efficient allocation of resources of goods and services, right? The taxation system should not distort the equilibrium of goods and services. Okay. Now let's focus upon this cost part of the efficient tax system, right? What does it mean to be low cost or less pain uh, if the tax system has to be more efficient in nature? So again, under the cost section, there are two branches. The first branch is administrative cost, which is very common in any country, and it is if a country taxes, it needs to have an administrative cost, which is inevitable, right? So administrative cost involves setting up departments, for example, income tax department or Central Bureau of Direct Taxes or goods and services council, right? Then the cost of the administrative cost also includes record keeping, right? And then creating systems through which people can file their taxes, right? But the administrative cost usually depends upon the complexity of the system. It also depends upon the type of taxes, and it also depends upon the reporting requirements, right? The other section of cost is the welfare cost, and in economics education, it is usually known as the deadweight loss, which is incurred by the society. It is also known as deadweight burden, right? So, whenever there is a government intervention which leads to an increase in price of any commodity or decrease in income for decrease in disposable income for uh, any citizen or society at large, of course it's a loss. Okay. So deadweight loss could be easily analyzed through Harburger's triangle, which you will see how it is graphically done. And there is also a simple formula for calculating deadweight loss or due to any government intervention or any other intervention, external intervention in a goods market. So let's see this graph. Okay. Now we can see that the blue line S1 and D1, S1, S1 and D1. So initial supply and initial demand in the oil market. Okay. Now when the government levies taxes of 0.50 per gallon, okay, the supply of the obviously with the increase in taxes, the price of commodity will increase. The price of oil has increased, right? And therefore the supply has shifted leftwards, right, to S2, right? So the supply has decreased. Okay. Now with the fall in supply, we can see that there is an increase in price also, right? With the increase in taxes, there is an increase in price from 1.30 to 1.80. So with this increase in price, we can see that the demand has fallen, right? So now less people are able to afford oil at higher prices, right? So the demand has fallen from Q1 equals to 100 to Q2 equals to 90. Now with increase in prices of oil, the consumers have been there are now less consumers of that particular commodity, right? So when these 10 consumers or 10 billion of gallons of oil is missing out from the market, now this is a deadweight loss which is incurred by the society, right? So this is how the deadweight loss is calculated. Like this triangle itself is a deadweight loss. So the difference between initial quantity and the quantity after intervention, right, into the tax amount, which is initial price, right, and the tax uh, price after the intervention and initial price. The difference between these two will be the tax amount, which is $0.50, right? And you multiply. So basically, it's a formula of triangle, like half into base into height, right? Okay. So now the all it's not always the case that the uh, it's not always be the simple case, right? every goods and services have different type of demand, have different behavioral response of consumers with increase or for decrease in price, right? Consumers does not respond equally to all goods and services in equal way, right? In similar way. So the response to elastic, so a consumer may respond differently to an inelastic good and differently to elastic good, and we will see how. So if a consumer has an inelastic demand for any product, or a good has an inelastic demand from the side of consumers, the increase in taxes will create less distortions in the market, right? So if you see in case of inelastic demand for any good, so if the demand curve is more steeper, right? So with the increase in taxes, right, and decrease in increase in price and the decrease in demand, we see that the deadweight loss is very less as compared to the initial uh, simpler case when we saw it, right? So this is because where even though the price has increased, the demand has not decreased drastically, right? So this is because the good may be necessary in nature. For example, salt, or if you say even COVID vaccine if it is deemed as a necessary good, then it will be in high demand and consumers will pay for it, even though the price has skyrocketed for it. On the other hand, if you see, uh, if the demand for the good is elastic in nature, even a small or an increase or decrease in price will shift the demand at a large scale. So with a slight increase in price, the demand has decreased drastically. This is because the demand for the good is very unstable, right? So it may not be a very you know uh, it may not be a necessity for any consumer, or there may be a lot of substitutes available in the market. So simply speaking, we can say that if the demand for a product is inelastic, then the deadweight loss will be smaller than if the demand of the good is elastic in nature. So should we imply, so now the question arises that in order to maintain a low cost of existence, right? So we can see that if we tax inelastic goods, then there is low cost, right? There are less distortions as compared to elastic goods, right? If we tax a good which has elastic demands, the distortions are high. The deadweight loss or the cost arising to deadweight loss is high, right? So basically, we are seeing that cost as a deadweight loss or deadweight loss as a cost, right? So should we tax inelastic goods only and should not tax elastic goods? I mean, it seems fair to tax inelastic goods and not elastic goods, right? Because inelastic goods are clearly generating less cost for the society. But we'll see in the further arguments that it is not the case actually. The government does not is not always keen on taxing inelastic goods highly, right? So the question, the let's carry forward this question forward. So basically, the efficiency or inefficiency of taxes can be determined by the extent to which consumers and producers change their behavior to avoid tax. Right? We saw that consumers behave differently towards taxes on inelastic goods and taxes on elastic goods. Right? But that does not mean that government should only tax inelastic goods, because inelastic goods are usually necessity in nature, right? And uh, taxing inelastic goods will not be an equitable solution at all, right? But since we are not talking about equity here, but taxing COVID vaccines does not make sense at all in such times, or taxing medicines like for diabetes or for cancer treatment, which is a necessity for people who are suffering from it, does not seem to making sense, right? So the lesson is that it is better to tax as many as things by little and not high taxes, right? Even if you tax less to elastic goods, it does not make so much distortions, right? So the lesson is that we should not tax high, but tax low to wide variety of goods and services in the market, right? And obviously the tax structure at large should be as such that it creates least distortions. It attracts least behavioral response from the consumers, right? So now, I mean, usually the citizens see taxes as a negative thing for the economy, right? But taxes can also become an important tool to discourage consumption of goods and services, which generate negative externalities. So this is usually known as double dividend of taxation. So, for example, if you are taxing cigarettes, e-cigarettes, or you're taxing petrol and diesel, uh, which is a topic of debate currently in India. So you use the revenue generated from taxing negative goods which have create negative externalities, and you use the tax revenue for public welfare schemes such as education, health, and capital investments. Right. My professor calls it deadweight gain of taxation. Right. So you're creating a deadweight loss, but you're converting that loss into some gains by investing into goods and services which are generating positive externalities. Efficient tax system should also be flexible in nature, right? As we saw in the in the earlier points. So basically, the economic environment or the environment of any society is not static at all, right? The conditions keep on changing, and so does the tax system, right? So a flexibility in efficient tax system means that as the scenario of society and economy changes, the tax rate should also adjust to that changing scenario, right? So tax system should act as an automatic stabilizers which adjust to the increase in GDP or decrease in GDP, right? So this is what flexibility means of an efficient tax system. So the last point which we will cover in this topic of efficiency and flexibility of tax system and answering how to tax, and this this curve gives us a very useful insight on how to tax, right? And this is Laffer curve, as you all may know. So Laffer curve is nothing but it tells us on the y-axis we have tax revenues and on the x-axis we have tax rate, right? So basically Laffer curve tells us that how much should be the tax rate, how but what is an optimal tax rate, right? So you keep on increasing tax rate. First you increase tax rate, so the tax revenue increases at increasing rate, and at a particular tax rate the tax revenue is maximum, right? So till then you are on a correct side of the on the Laffer curve, right? But as you start increasing tax rate even more, the tax revenue starts falling, right? And from that moment onwards we are on the wrong side of the Laffer curve. So Laffer curve tells us the correct side of tax rate and the wrong side of tax rate, and the between that is an optimal tax rate which the administration should not exceed. Right. So this is something is interesting to see and to follow. Right. So this is all from my side in this efficiency and flexibility of taxation system. And in the next video we will cover about the equity and transparency, how to make taxation system more equitable and transparent in nature. And in that video we will be answering about whom to tax, right? Instead of answering now we answered how to tax, right? So this is all from my side, and I hope you learned something from this video. And if you have any question, then do let me know in the comment section. Thank you and keep learning. Bye.